My name is Daniel Crow. I'm 30, 2 years old, single. Former systems analyst from Vancouver, British Columbia. That's not the kind of opening that grabs attention, I know, but it's the truth. For most of my adult life, I kept things clean, quiet, and comfortably predictable. I paid my rent on time, filed my taxes early, and never left my dishes in the sink overnight. I lived in a one-bedroom condo with a view of the SkyTrain line and a potted fern I named Marcus. I didn't have a dramatic past. No criminal record. No childhood trauma. Just a slow, creeping dissatisfaction that followed me like a shadow. I guess you could say that's what pushed me to take the job. It was a classified ad buried in the back pages of a forum I barely remembered signing up for. Fire lookout needed, South Caribou region. Remote post. Solo living. Seasonal contract. Applicants must be self-sufficient and mentally resilient. I read it 3 times before bookmarking it. At first, I laughed, but something about it stuck with me. A job that required me to sit in a tower, watch trees, and be left alone for weeks. It felt like someone had designed it specifically for me. I applied the same night. A man named Grant called me the next day, said he was with the Ministry of Forests. Asked me a few standard questions: health history, outdoor experience, whether I was comfortable with isolation. I gave honest answers and assumed that would be the end of it. But at the end of the call, he simply said, "All right, you're cleared. We'll send you the packet." That was it. A week later, I received a padded envelope with a laminated map, a list of gear to bring, and a contract. There was also a note, handwritten on government stationery: "Your station is Tower 13, the last lookout left unexpectedly. Follow the manual. Contact via radio twice daily at 0800 and 1800. Float plane departs in 7 days. Pack light." I didn't ask questions. I should have. But I didn't. 7 days later, I was standing on the edge of Watcher's Ridge, watching the plane disappear across the lake. The only sound was the drone of the engine fading into the trees. I was alone. Tower 13 wasn't what I expected. The structure was older than the photos suggested. Wooden supports that had been weathered gray, a wraparound deck with a few missing planks, and a narrow metal staircase that groaned under my weight. The cabin itself sat 20 feet off the ground and looked like a cross between a treehouse and an observation post. It had everything I needed, though: wood stove, cot, gas-powered stove, water tanks, radio, binoculars, and a tiny desk with a logbook and weather charts. A single window looked out in each direction, offering a panoramic view of nothing but green for miles. The manual was on the desk. Thick black binder. Government issue. Labeled Operations Manual Tower 13. I flipped through it that first night by lantern light. The first half was dry. Emergency protocols, maintenance tips, reporting formats, fire danger scales. But tucked in the back, behind a loose divider, was a section someone had added by hand. The paper was yellowed and the ink was faded blue, written in tidy, careful script. It was labeled Notes for the Next Lookout. The first line stopped me cold. "There are rules here. Follow them." Below that was a list, numbered, precise, each one underlined twice. 1. Never open the trap door after midnight, even if you hear knocking, especially if you hear knocking. 2. Log your dreams, every morning, before you forget. 3. If the radio crackles but no one speaks, turn it off for exactly 17 minutes. Not more, not less. 4. There is a woman in the trees. Don't talk to her. Don't listen if she talks to you. 5. Close all the windows before dusk. All of them. 6. Never leave the tower after dark. Not even for a second. There were 6 rules. No explanations. No signature. Just those 6. I stared at the page for a long time, then turned the manual over in my hands, half expecting a hidden microphone or prank note. But there was nothing. Just silence pressing in through the glass. I told myself it was a joke. Maybe the last guy got bored. Stir crazy. Started writing spooky stories to freak out his replacement. I considered tearing the page out, but something stopped me. I left it open on the desk, just in case. The first few days passed without incident. I settled into a rhythm. Wake at 6, scan the horizon with binoculars, log the weather, make my radio check-in, cook oatmeal, read, nap, check again at noon, prep dinner, radio again at 1800, then try not to go insane with the silence. No fires, no smoke, no people. Just wind, birdsong, and the occasional distant howl of something I hoped was a coyote. The quiet was deeper than I expected. I thought I'd crave it, but it felt thick, dense, like the woods were absorbing sound instead of making it. That's when the knocking started. It was my fourth night. I'd just written in my journal and was brushing my teeth when I heard it. Thunk, thunk, thunk. It wasn't loud, but it was close. Right beneath me, the metal of the trapdoor vibrated with each knock. I froze, toothbrush in hand. 3 knocks, spaced out, measured. Like someone testing, I stared at the trapdoor. It was locked. Of course, bolted from the inside. But the noise made my skin crawl. I didn't move. Didn't even breathe. I waited. Nothing. I crept to the trapdoor and pressed my ear to the wood. Silence. I checked the clock, 20:14 a.m. I stepped back, hands shaking, and read Rule 1. Never open the trapdoor after midnight. Even if you hear knocking. Especially if you hear knocking. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay on the cot with the lantern on, clutching the radio like it would help. In the morning, I told myself it was a raccoon, or maybe a branch falling just right. But when I opened the manual to that same page, something had changed. There was a new line at the bottom. Good. You followed Rule 1. Keep going. It was the same handwriting, same pen, same ink. But I know it wasn't there before. I had read that page at least 5 times. It hadn't said that. I stared at the page, heart pounding. My brain fought for a rational explanation. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I was tired. But deep down, I knew. Something was watching me. I didn't leave the cabin that morning. Technically, I was supposed to do an exterior check, walk the perimeter, inspect the generator housing, check the water tanks. But my boots stayed by the door. I told myself it was caution, that maybe a bear or something large had bumped the trap door, and I didn't want to startle it. But I knew it wasn't an animal. Animals don't knock. Instead, I radioed in like normal, voice calm, clipped, pretending everything was fine. Tower 13 checking in, clear visibility, no fire activity. I even gave the coordinates like I was supposed to. No one responded. They usually didn't. Just a static hiss to confirm the line was open. I logged the report in the binder and poured myself coffee from the percolator. It tasted like burnt plastic and cold ash. I drank it anyway. Around noon, I worked up the nerve to open the trapdoor. The latch creaked as I undid it, and I waited, half expecting something to lunge at me. But nothing did. I cracked the door open and peeked down the metal stairs. Empty. No tracks, no marks. Just wind and pine needles. I descended slowly, scanning the clearing around the base of the tower. Everything looked normal. Still, the silence felt even thicker outside, like a vacuum just beyond the tree line. It swallowed every sound the moment I made it. I walked a slow loop around the tower. No signs of wildlife. No branches on the trapdoor. I checked the generator enclosure, then the fuel drums. All untouched. I should have felt better after that. I didn't. That night, I double-checked every window latch. The manual said to close them all before dusk. Rule 5. I don't usually put much stock in arbitrary rules, but after what happened with the trapdoor, I wasn't interested in testing them. I locked each window tight, then dragged a chair up against the trapdoor, just for good measure. It was stupid, but it made me feel less exposed. The sun dipped low behind the ridge, orange blood into deep purple. The trees became black pillars. I cooked dinner with the lantern on full. chili from a can. I didn't taste it. I kept glancing toward the windows. That's when I noticed something strange. The air outside the north-facing window wasn't moving. Not even a little. No wind. No shifting branches. Just stillness. But the trees outside the south window were swaying slightly, just enough to ruffle the tops. I moved between the two windows again and again. Wind doesn't choose sides. The temperature dropped sharply after sunset. I added wood to the stove and kept the radio close by. Around 11 p.m., the silence broke with a familiar crackle. The radio hissed, then clicked once, like someone pressing the mic button. Then nothing. I stared at it, pulse rising. Another click. Still no voice. I picked it up and held the button. Tower 13 responding. Please repeat, over. Silence. The hairs on my arm stood up. Then came a third click. Short, then two quick ones. Click, 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 click. Something about the rhythm made my stomach twist. I flipped open the manual and scanned Rule 30. If the radio crackles but no one speaks, turn it off for exactly 17 minutes. Not more, not less. I looked at the clock, 11:12 p.m. I turned off the radio and set a timer on my watch. Every instinct screamed that this was ridiculous. 17 minutes. That was so specific it felt made up. But after what happened with Rule 1, I wasn't in the mood to gamble. 17 minutes later, I turned the radio back on. Dead air. I set the radio down and backed away. I barely slept that night. When I did dream, it was vivid and fast, like falling through scenes I didn't recognize. Forests that stretched out like veins. A woman walking between the trees with hair that shimmered like ash. Her face always just out of view. I woke with my hands clenched, jaw sore, breath sharp in my chest. I logged the dream, just like Rule 2 said. Dream log day 5, woman in forest. Face obscured. Following her, but ground keeps moving. Trees feel too tall. Air tastes like copper. Woke up sweating. Writing it down didn't help. It felt like an infection growing at the edge of my thoughts. The rest of the day was quiet. Too quiet. Even the birds had stopped calling. By sunset, I was jumpy. My fingers twitched every time the wind shifted. I kept imagining movement at the edge of the tree line, just out of focus. I thought about radioing for extraction. I even picked up the mic and held it in my hand for a long minute. Then I remembered the note. The last lookout left unexpectedly. What if he tried to leave and something stopped him? That night, I followed the routine obsessively. Windows locked. Trapdoor bolted. Chair wedged tight. Lantern on, stove burning low. I fell asleep around midnight with the radio on low. I woke up to a voice, faint, female, whispering through the static. I didn't move. Just listened. It was so soft I could barely make out the words, but I was sure it said my name. Daniel. I reached for the radio and turned the volume down. The whisper didn't fade. It wasn't coming from the radio. It was coming from outside. Daniel, come down. My mouth went dry. I sat up slowly and moved to the farthest wall. The voice came again. Clearer now, like someone just beneath the floorboards. Please, I need help. Rule 40, there is a woman in the trees. Don't talk to her. Don't listen if she talks to you. I pressed my hands over my ears and stared at the trapdoor. It creaked. Just once. Like pressure on the other side. I stayed frozen in place until dawn. When light finally broke through the windows, I moved like I was made of glass. Everything inside me was brittle, fragile. I opened the trapdoor slowly, heart thundering in my chest. No one was there. But someone had left something on the last stair. A small bundle of pine needles tied with red thread. I didn't touch it. I just closed the trapdoor and locked it again. I didn't report it. I don't know why. Maybe because I didn't want whoever, or whatever, was out there to know I noticed. Instead, I added a new line to the dream log. Day 6, not a dream. Heard her voice. Did not speak. Did not open. Pine bundle left on stairs. Didn't touch. Later that afternoon, I noticed another change in the manual. Beneath Rule 4, a new note had appeared in the same blue ink. You're doing well. She gets louder the more you listen. Don't give her a voice. I closed the binder and sat back in the chapel, shaking. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I sat by the stove with an axe across my lap and stared at the trapdoor. I lasted another 4 nights before something broke in me. They weren't normal nights. Each one stretched long and tight, like my nerves were strings drawn taut across the floorboards. I slept maybe an hour here and there, never more. Just enough to blur the edges of things. The voice came back on the second night, softer this time. She called from farther off, but it didn't help. The sound of my name whispered from the trees was worse than a scream. I didn't answer, didn't move, but my dreams changed. They weren't just images anymore. They were places, walking trails I didn't remember entering, forest paths under a sky too low, too heavy. Sometimes the woman was there ahead of me, still facing away. Sometimes she wasn't, but I always felt her. And the scent that followed, burnt moss, wet iron, and something like old smoke. I wrote everything down. Every morning, the journal was filling up fast. Day 7 dream log. Pine needles covering my bed. Can't open my mouth in the dream. Something is sitting outside the window, but I can't look directly at it. Day 80 woke up with soil under my nails. Didn't leave tower. No explanation. Day 90 dreamt I was inside the tower, but something else was in my body, looking out of my eyes. Couldn't wake up. Every day, I checked the manual. No new notes, no changes. Just those same 6 rules and the new lines I'd already read. Until day 10. That morning, there was a 7th rule. If you hear footsteps on the stairs during daylight, hide. Don't speak. Don't breathe. Don't let it know you're up here. It was written between the lines like it had always been there. I sat at the desk staring at the page, then out the window. Nothing moved. The clearing below was empty, the trees still. But I didn't feel alone anymore. The shift was subtle, like when you realize someone's watching you in a crowd. You don't know how you know, but you do. I kept looking over my shoulder, catching glimpses of nothing. I started seeing shapes that weren't shapes, movement that wasn't movement. My eyes played tricks, or maybe they didn't. On day 11, I found something on the deck, a single footprint. Bare, small. It hadn't rained in days. The wood was dry, but the print was wet. It faced the trapdoor. I stood there for a long time, not touching it, just staring. Eventually, I went back inside, bolted the trapdoor again, and shoved the chair under it like always. That night, I pulled the cot across the floor and slept beside the stove, axe still in hand. When I woke, the chair had been moved. Not knocked over, not thrown, just moved. Set neatly 2 feet away from the trapdoor, as if someone had come up and made room to open it, but didn't yet. The air inside the cabin felt thinner after that, like the oxygen had dropped without warning. I couldn't focus. Everything I did felt mechanical. Radio check-ins, weather reports, food prep. I stopped reading. I stopped journaling. I stopped doing anything that wasn't strictly survival. Then came the static. Not from the radio. From everywhere. I was sitting at the desk when it started. This low, vibrating hum that came from no direction and all directions at once. It felt like my teeth were rattling. The glass in the windows began to shake. The wood in the walls trembled. I dropped to the floor, covered my ears, and shut my eyes. It didn't help. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped, and something laughed. Not a full laugh, just the beginning of one, sharp, close, right behind me. I turned around and saw nothing, but the cold didn't leave. I didn't sleep at all after that. I began seeing things in the trees. At first just shadows, tall and narrow between the trunks. Then figures, watching, never approaching, never moving, just there. Every time I looked away and back, they were gone. But I knew they were still out there. On day 13, the forest changed. The colors dulled. The green of the canopy turned gray. The birds went silent again. And the wind stopped completely. The forest became a painting. Dead but perfect. I tried to radio for help. No response. Just static. I flipped the switch off. Waited 17 minutes. Nothing changed. That evening, I closed the windows early. All of them. Except the west-facing one. That one wouldn't shut. I pulled. I slammed. I hit it with the heel of my hand. The latch refused to catch. It was stuck open 2 inches. Just 2. But enough. Duct taped it as best I could, nailed a blanket over the frame, then pushed the desk up against it. That night I heard breathing outside it. Soft, measured, right behind the glass. I sat by the stove, axe on my lap, every light on. When the breathing stopped, something tapped on the glass. Once, twice. Then, very slowly, something whispered my name again. But this time, it wasn't just a whisper. It was inside my head. I clamped my hands over my ears, but I still heard it. A voice behind my eyes. "You're not real," I said aloud over and over. But she didn't go away, she just waited. On the morning of day 14, I made a mistake. I opened the west window. I didn't mean to. I was tired. I was checking the tape, and the latch gave way in my hand. The window swung open with a soft creak, and for half a second, I saw her, standing just below the ridge, not moving, wearing white, hair down to her waist, face blurred like someone had smudged it with charcoal. We locked eyes, even though I couldn't see her eyes. Then she smiled, even though she didn't have a mouth. I slammed the window shut and bolted it again. I backed away and grabbed the radio. "Emergency. This is Tower 13. I need extraction. Immediate. Please respond. Static. Please respond. Something's wrong out here." Then, finally, a voice. But it wasn't the dispatch. It was me, coming through the speaker. "Please respond. Something's wrong out here." My voice, delayed, repeated. I dropped the mic. The radio went dead. I backed into the corner, heart pounding like a drum in my throat. I didn't sleep. I didn't even blink. When the sun came up, the tower felt smaller, like the walls had moved inward. The corners darker than they should be, the light too thin. I checked the manual again. Rule 8 had been added. In Red 8, "You're almost out of time. Don't trust the sun." I didn't understand Rule 8 at first. Don't trust the sun. What the hell was I supposed to do with that? Sunlight had been the only constant out here. The line between safe and unsafe, between normal and nightmare. Now even that was unreliable. I watched the sky all morning expecting something obvious. A shift in color, a second sun, a flicker. But nothing happened, except time started bending. It's hard to explain. The light looked the same, but the feel of the day was wrong. I'd glance at my watch and swear hours had passed, only to find it had been 10 minutes. Then I'd look away, distracted by a sound or movement, and when I looked back, 2 full hours were gone. The shadows didn't track properly either. At one point, the sunlight came from 2 different directions. The shadow from the weather station pointed northwest, while the stoves pointed east. I stopped trusting the clock, stopped trusting my eyes. By the afternoon of day 14, the temperature dropped suddenly. A heavy cold sank in that didn't match the season. My breath fogged in front of my face, even inside the cabin. I chopped wood like a man possessed. I barely felt the axe handle in my hands. I just kept swinging. It was like I knew deep down that heat was the last line of defense. That night, the forest began to move. Not the trees, the ground. The slope of the ridge shifted. The view from the south window tilted slightly to the left. I put a level on the desk. The bubble wobbled off center even though the cabin hadn't moved. Then came the music, faint at first, a distant, echoing tune, like an old music box drifting in on the wind. I checked the radio. Nothing. I opened a window just a crack to listen. Just for a second. The music got louder. It was playing from the forest, from everywhere. Some kind of melody I didn't recognize. Childlike, slow, winding upward and down again. It made my stomach twist. Then came the voices, whispering over the tune just underneath it. Too many to count. All at once, chanting things I didn't understand. I slammed the window shut and dropped to the floor, hands over my ears. They didn't stop. They only got louder. I stoked the fire until the stove glowed red and curled up beside it. The journal sat open on the floor beside me. I didn't even write in it. I just stared at the page. My dream log had become indistinguishable from reality. I must have passed out at some point, because I woke up with blood in my nose and ash on my hands. The manual was on my chest, open to a blank page. No lines, no rules, just a single word scrawled in the center in fresh blue ink. RUN. That was the first time I seriously considered leaving, not calling for extraction, not waiting it out, just grabbing what I could and bolting into the forest. But that was the point, wasn't it? It wanted me to leave the tower, and I remembered Rule 6. Never leave the tower after dark. Not even for a second. I looked outside. The sun was still up, but something was off. The shadows were moving too slowly. The trees swayed in sync, like they were breathing. The sky looked stretched, like it was holding its breath. I checked the clock, 4:48 p.m., then I blinked, and it was 10:23 p.m. The fire was out. The cabin was pitch black. I didn't hear it come in. I just felt it. Something else was inside. I reached for the lantern. My fingers brushed something wet, not water. Sticky. The match sparked. Flame caught. And there it was. A shape, tall, angular, hunched in the far corner where the shadows pooled too deeply. No face, no features. Just a twisting human outline. Watching. Waiting. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I backed up against the wall, gripping the axe like a lifeline. The thing didn't move. It didn't need to. The air thickened, pressing into my lungs like wet wool. Then the trapdoor creaked. Not from opening, from closing. It had already come up. I lunged for the stove and threw in dry wood, splashing kerosene on top. Flames roared to life. The thing recoiled. Barely, but enough. It slipped back into the shadows, folding into them like smoke. I stayed up until morning. When the sun finally rose, the sky looked flat, pale, like someone had dimmed it from behind. The shadows were all wrong again. I took stock of my supplies. I had 1 week of food left, barely a few days of water. Fuel was running low. The float plane was supposed to return at the end of the 4th week. I was on day 15. I wouldn't make it. The forest knew. It was waiting. I didn't check in over the radio. I didn't open the windows. I didn't eat. I sat at the desk and read every single page of the manual again, front to back, hoping there was something I missed, a warning, a trick, a map out of this. But it was just procedure, until the very back cover. Written in tiny, almost illegible cursive. Tower 13 is not a place, it's a threshold. You are not a lookout. You are the lock. I stared at the words for a long time, my thoughts unraveling. What did that mean? A threshold to what? Was that why the rules mattered? Not to keep me safe, but to keep it in. The knock came that night, same as before. 3 soft, slow taps on the trapdoor, then silence, then a voice rasped, wet, wrong. Daniel. I didn't move. It knocked again. Faster this time.
Let me in.
I sat against the door with my back braced, hands shaking. The radio clicked on by itself. My voice came through it. I'm so cold down here. Why won't you let me up? Another knock. Then laughter. So close it felt like it was inside the wood. I whispered the rules to myself over and over. My new religion. Never open the trapdoor. Never open the trapdoor. Never. Then silence. I stayed like that until sunrise. The sun rose from the north. That was when I knew I had no more time. Everything out here was unraveling. Inside, outside, it didn't matter anymore. It was getting in. And I was losing whatever part of me remembered how things were supposed to be. The manual added one last line, not a rule, a confession. If you're reading this, it's already started changing you. You'll hear it soon, in your own voice. Begging, that's how it wins. That's how it gets in. I tore the page out, burned it in the stove. But the voice is still there now, low, constant, like breath under my skin. It says I can end it all, that the trapdoor is just wood, that I don't need to be the lock anymore, that I don't even remember why I started this. But I do, I remember. My name is Daniel Crow. I'm the lookout for Tower 13, and I am not opening that door. I stopped marking the days. The calendar I kept by the desk, the one with the bright red X tracking my time here, meant nothing now. I had marked the first 2 weeks cleanly, and then the days started to bleed together. By the time I reached what I think was day 17, I tore the page off and threw it in the stove. Time didn't work here anymore. The sun rose wrong, the shadows bent sideways. The watch I wore stopped resetting at midnight. One night it jumped forward 6 hours. The next it refused to move at all. The rules were all I had left. I started repeating them out loud, over and over, like a mantra. Not because I needed to remember them anymore, because if I stopped saying them, I could feel it, something creeping through the walls of my mind like roots cracking stone. I had a dream, maybe, or I was awake. I was standing outside the tower, barefoot, staring up at it in the moonlight. I saw myself in the window, looking down. Our eyes met, mine and the version of me still inside, and the me in the window smiled. He raised a hand. I did the same, but I didn't stop smiling. I woke up with pine needles in my mouth. There was dirt under my tongue. I had been chewing it. The stove had gone cold. I hadn't lit it the night before, and the windows were open. All of them. I ran to each one and slammed them shut. All I could think was, it was inside. It was inside and I let it out. Or it let me out. Or we traded places. My journal was still open on the desk, but the handwriting wasn't mine. Same pages, same dates, different words, each dream entry rewritten, twisted. Day 7 dream log. The woman is beautiful. She whispers secrets about the forest. I followed her deeper. She kissed my hands and I forgot my name. Day 90. The figure in the corner is not a threat. He's a guardian. He waits for me to accept the truth. That I belong to the woods now. That I always did. Day 13 says the rules are a trap. They keep you from changing, from evolving on. Then you'll see. I slammed the journal shut and backed away like it might bite. Then I ripped out every single page and threw them into the stove, one by one. I didn't watch them burn. I couldn't. I just turned my back and whispered the rules again. Each one felt heavier now. Less like warnings and more like bindings. Ropes cages. And I needed them. Because something was pressing in on the tower. Not just physically, existentially. Like the idea of the structure was collapsing under the weight of whatever waited outside. Sometimes the stairs would creak even when nothing was there. Sometimes I'd see movement in the mirrors, even though I had covered every reflective surface with blankets and tape by then. Sometimes I'd hear my voice calling from under the floor. Sometimes it would say things I was afraid I believed. It knew me, not like an enemy, like a twin. It knew what to say. You're not protecting anyone. There's no one coming. You were chosen because you were already hollow. Let it in, let it out. I stopped sleeping altogether. The stove stayed lit constantly. I sat near it for warmth, but also because it anchored me. A real thing, a crackling noise I could trust. I boiled water just to hear it hiss. I smashed the radio with the axe after it replayed one of my old logs out of nowhere. In reverse, I thought about writing new rules. But I didn't want to give it that power. Instead, I carved them into the wall with my knife. 1. Never open the trapdoor after midnight. 2. Log your dreams before you forget. 3. If the radio crackles with no voice, shut it off for exactly 17 minutes. 4. Don't speak to the woman in the trees. 5. Close all windows before dusk. 6. Never leave the tower after dark. 7. Hide from footsteps during the day. 8. Don't trust the sun. I stared at those words until they blurred, until I heard them in the walls. The forest stopped pretending by day 18 or 19. I can't be sure. I stopped marking. The trees moved during the day now. Not just swaying, walking. Not bending in the wind. There was no wind. I mean, the trees themselves moved. I saw it from the north window. 1 entire pine leaned forward, slowly, like it was sniffing the air. Then it crept 2 feet forward. It happened over the course of half an hour. But I swear to you it moved. And it wasn't alone. Every tree on the northern ridge was closer by nightfall. The clearing around the tower was smaller. I tried not to look at them anymore. I boarded up the windows, best I could. Blankets, duct tape, nailed wood from the supply crates. But it didn't matter, because I could hear the trees breathing now. Low and deep, like bellows, like lungs older than memory. The whole forest inhaling and exhaling as one. And something inside that forest, something at the heart of it, was calling me. The voice didn't pretend anymore. It spoke in full now. Calm, male, almost kind. This is what you wanted, Daniel. You asked to be alone. You came here to disappear. We're just finishing what you started. I screamed at it until my throat tore raw. Then I buried my head in the blankets and bit down to keep from answering, because that was the trap. If you talk to it, it grows in you. If you listen long enough, it sounds like you. I haven't opened the trap door. I haven't broken the rules, but I'm not sure how much longer I can hold, because now I'm starting to understand it. The trees, the voice, the rules, they're not here to protect me. They're here to protect everything else. From what I'll become. The trees are closer now. I measure them. Not formally, not with tape or tools, but with instinct. The same way you notice someone standing too close behind you. There used to be 20 feet of open space between the tower and the edge of the forest. Room for the wind to move, for light to stretch. Now it's maybe 10, maybe less. The pines lean inward like they're listening. Some of their branches scrape against the lower stairs. They creak at night, even when there's no breeze. The sound reminds me of teeth grinding. The only way I sleep now is by sitting up against the stove. I don't even bother trying to lie down anymore. I don't undress. I don't blink unless I have to. The axe sits in my lap, always. The journal is gone. The radio is gone. The manual is ash. All that's left are the rules. I repeat them every hour on the hour. I've carved them into the walls, the furniture, my own skin. Not deep. Just enough to leave marks. 1 for each rule. They look like tally marks, but I know what they mean. Each one is a barrier, a seal. Each one is keeping me human. I haven't broken any of them, I think, but I'm starting to forget things. Small things at first. Words. I looked at my hands yesterday and couldn't remember which one was dominant. I stared at a spoon for a full minute trying to remember what it was for. Worse, sometimes I wake up and I'm standing, not from a dream, just standing, in front of the trapdoor, hand on the latch. No memory of how I got there. The wood under the door is warm now. It pulses faintly, like a heartbeat. Sometimes I think I feel it breathing in sync with mine, and I swear I can hear something moving beneath it. Slow, patient, waiting. It talks to me more now. The voice, male, smooth, low, like water over stone. It doesn't shout. It doesn't plead. It offers. You've done so well, Daniel. You've lasted longer than the others. You're strong. You're worthy. That's why we chose you. The voice never uses the plural by accident. I know now that it's not just one thing. It's a they. They are beneath the forest. Inside it. Part of it. And they've been watching this place long before Tower 13 was ever built. The manual lied. It didn't tell me everything. I found more pages. I wasn't looking for them. They were slipped into my coat pocket. When? I don't know. But they're the same faded blue ink. Same tight handwriting. Same urgency. And they're numbered. Page 12, page 14, page 17. Each one starts with a variation of the phrase. If you're reading this, they know you're close. I read them once. Then I tore them up. I shouldn't have. Because now I can't stop thinking about what they said. The pages described other towers. Not just 13. They all had different rules. Some were simpler. Others were longer. One was just a single sentence, repeated 100 times. Do not acknowledge the third sun. Another warned never to look directly into reflections after day 20. Another spoke of something called the hollowing, a point at which the lookout stops seeing the tower as a prison and starts seeing it as a mouth. That's where I'm heading. I know it, and I'm not sure I can stop it. I think I've started to speak in my sleep. I find words carved into the wood that I don't remember writing. They're not in English. They're not in any language I know. But I understand them anyway. The rules are fading from me little by little. I try to remember them, and they come back, but wrong. Last night I whispered one aloud and heard myself say, "Always leave the trapdoor open after midnight, especially if you hear knocking." I slapped my hand over my mouth like a reflex. That wasn't my voice. It came through me, but it didn't come from me, and worse, the door was unlocked. Not open, but the bolt was slid free. I fell to the floor and screamed until I passed out. When I woke up, I had a new mark on my arm. Not carved, not bruised, a burn, in the shape of a circle with 3 lines radiating outward. I don't know what it means, but I think it's a countdown. The window latches have started coming undone on their own. The boards I nailed down are warped. The blanket over the west window is damp with something thick and black, like tree sap mixed with blood. I've seen the woman in the trees again. She's closer. Always the same, long white dress, face blurred like smeared charcoal. She doesn't move. She just watches. But now she's smiling. Not with a mouth, but with her presence. She wants me to come out. She wants me to join the forest. To sink into it like roots. To lose my name. And there's a part of me that wants to say yes. Because then the fear would stop. Then the rules wouldn't matter. Then I wouldn't have to be the lock anymore. But if I go, something comes in. That's the trade. That's always been the trade. I found one final note, etched into the underside of the cot, in tiny, ragged scratches. The door doesn't open down. It opens in, and now I understand what it meant. The trapdoor isn't just a way into the tower. It's a way into me. Every knock, every whisper, every word the forest speaks in my voice. It's not trying to get inside the tower. It's trying to get inside Daniel Crow. And maybe it already has. I can't tell if I've already opened the trapdoor. I remember standing by it. I remember my hand on the bolt. I remember thinking just to check. Just for a second. I remember stopping. I remember backing away. But when I woke up this morning, the door was wide open. The chair was overturned. The lock was twisted. The underside of the door, the part that always faced down, was dripping. Not water, not sap, not blood. Something clear and slow. Like oil that had been waiting inside the wood for years. It soaked into the floor and stained it black. I didn't go near it. I nailed the trapdoor shut. Used every nail I had left. Hammered until my arms shook. Then I stacked the desk, the chair, the stove's metal cover, and a full crate of canned food on top of it. It won't matter. Not anymore. The tower's not sealed. I'm not sealed. They're already in. I can feel it. The them. A pressure inside my skull, like a thought too big to hold. It doesn't speak like it used to. Not with words. Now it just pulses, a rhythm in my bones, a hunger behind my teeth. I caught myself chewing on my sleeve last night, tearing the fabric with my back molars. I wasn't hungry. I just needed to bite something. I spat out thread and blood and laughed until I cried. Then I heard my voice laughing with me from inside the stove. I haven't lit it in days. There's no point. The cold doesn't bother me anymore. The rules are all breaking down. Rule 5. Close all the windows before dusk. All of them. They don't close anymore, I try. The frames won't hold. The glass flexes when I touch it, like plastic wrap over something breathing. One of them cracked last night. Not shattered. Cracked from the inside. I didn't move for hours. I sat in the corner with my axe and whispered my name like it was a spell. Daniel Crow. Daniel Crow. Daniel Crow. It didn't sound right anymore. Didn't feel like mine. My face in the mirror doesn't match my memory. My skin's gone pale and tight, like bark stretched too far. My eyes are darker, not just tired, deeper, like the pupils are sinking inward. Sometimes I think I can see light behind them. Not mine. The woman in the woods is gone. I haven't seen her in 2 nights. Now, something else stands where she used to. Taller. Broader. Its shape changes when I blink. It doesn't watch me the way she did. It waits. That's worse. Because I know it's not watching me. It's watching the version of me that's growing in here. The one I've been feeding with every fear, every rule I've repeated, every time I've obeyed the voice, even by accident. I get it now. The rules weren't to keep me alive. They were to give the thing inside time to gestate, time to align, time to match my shape, because once it matches me fully, it won't need to knock anymore. It will be me, and no one will know the difference. That's why they pick people like me, isolated, unnoticed, unanchored. People whose disappearance wouldn't cause alarms. People already halfway invisible. Lookouts. They're not towers. They're cradles. The wood, the glass, the metal. It's all just skin for whatever grows inside, and I'm almost finished. The other me, the one under the skin, speaks now when I dream. It uses my voice, my thoughts, but it's smoother, more confident. It knows who it is, and it wants me to let go. You don't have to suffer. Just open your eyes. Step outside. Breathe in. Breathe out. The forest loves you. The forest made you. You are soil and ash and echo. Last night I answered it. Not aloud. In the dream. I said, "Why me?" And it smiled. And said, "Because you were already empty." We just moved in. This morning, there was a new mark on the ceiling above the trapdoor. Burned into the wood. A perfect ring. Inside the ring, a single vertical slit. Like an eye half-lidded. I don't remember carving it. But I felt my hand ached like I had. There's no more sun. Not really. It rises and falls like normal. But the light doesn't feel like light. It's cold. Gray. It touches nothing. It makes shadows that move before I do. I tried to send a message. Just once more. I thought maybe if I used the backup radio, the emergency beacon, someone might hear me. It lit up for half a second. Then it melted. Not overheated. Melted. Like it had been inside a furnace. The smell was sweet. I didn't try again. There's no one to call. There was never anyone. I found the last message carved into the underside of the stove plate. Not a rule. Just a countdown. 2 days left. After that, you're not the lock anymore. I scratched it out with a nail. Didn't matter. I already feel the cracks inside. Little gaps in my memory, in my voice, in the way I think. Yesterday I forgot how to spell my name. Today I wrote it again, and it came out wrong. Dainel. The letters looked like they were wrething, like they didn't want to stay still. I wiped them away. But I saw the same version scrawled on the windowpane later that night, in fog, drawn by a finger I don't remember lifting. The sky tonight is the wrong shape, not the wrong color, shape. It dips in the middle, like a dome sagging under weight. And above the sag something glows, dim, pulsing, irregular. I think it's the real sun, trying to get through. But it's too late. Whatever's above us now, it's not the sky anymore. It's the roof of whatever this place has become. Not a forest, not a tower, not a man, just a system. Self-replicating, self-correcting. I'm just the latest version. They'll come for me soon. The others, the ones I replaced. The tower doesn't let you leave. It lets you shed. And when I'm done shedding, there won't be a Daniel Crow anymore. There'll just be a space in the tower, ready for the next. I used to think I was fighting something, holding it back. Now I see it clearly. I was just keeping the door closed long enough for me to become it. And the final rule, the one no one writes down, is the simplest of all. Become the thing, or be eaten by it. And I'm tired of being afraid.